This video will be covering the history of the Dunan region up to the beginning of Suikoden 2. I'll be covering the rise and fall of the Dunan Monarchy, the foundation of the Highland Kingdom, the establishment of the City-States of Jowston, the many wars and conflicts that took place between the City-States and Highland and the City-States and the Scarlet Moon Empire. The majority of the information surrounding these events comes from books, short stories, and encyclopedias that only released in Japan, so there isn't any gameplay footage to show, so I'll use the same visual style as I did for the Scarlet Moon Empire video, as you guys seem to enjoy that. So let's get into the history of the Dunan region. The foundation of the Dunan Monarchy. The Dunan Monarchy, otherwise known as the Kingdom of Dunan, was established in the solar year 110 by a man called Bernardo. Bernardo established the Dunan Monarchy in the province of South Window, declaring himself king, where he would rule from the capital of South Window City. Bernardo would then begin invading the neighbouring regions, claiming the villages of Toto and Ryube to the east, as well as Two River City to the west, before marching north into Greenhill, Mews and Chiaro, before finally capturing the Matilda region. Bernardo laid a strong foundation for a new kingdom, covering the majority of modern-day Dunan. However, he was viewed as a despotic ruler, and his reign was considered to be one of misrule. While Bernardo was a great military leader, he was a poor governor. He imposed heavy taxation on the people of his kingdom to maintain a strong military even after uniting the lands under his rule. This, along with poor administration, led to many viewing his reign as one of misrule. Following Bernardo's death, the monarchy became afflicted with weak leadership. The incompetence of the next two rulers led to the deterioration of the kingdom. Under the reign of its fourth king, King Beryl, the Dunan monarchy would begin to recover. Thanks to Beryl's skilled governance, the kingdom prospered, and was said to have achieved its greatest heights. Due to a lack of foreign threats, and Beryl showing no interest in expansion or war, his reign was peaceful and uneventful. However, his peaceful rule led to a reduced and weakened army. The Kingdom Splinters. Following the death of King Beryl in the year 185, the Dunan monarchy would begin to collapse. The people of Mews, led by a man called Revier, fearing another weak, incompetent ruler, would break away from the Dunan monarchy and declare its independence. The Dunan monarchy would lose half of its territory following the loss of Mews, as Mews governed over both Greenhill and Matilda. Following its independence, Revier was elected as the first mayor of Mews. The Dunan monarchy and the Mews principality would frequently engage in skirmishes along their borders over the next 27 years, with neither side gaining the upper hand, and neither side gaining or losing any territory. In the solar year 212, Two River would declare their independence and secede from the Dunan monarchy. The loss of Two River would weaken the kingdom even further, reducing it to just the province of South Window and its eastern territories of small villages. The foundation of the Highland Kingdom. In the solar year 230, civil war broke out within the Holy Kingdom of Harmonia, as rumours spread of the death of High Priest Hikusak, the ruler of Harmonia. The civil war lasted for 7 years, until Morrow Blight, a Harmonian nobleman, would crush the rebellions and finally put an end to the civil war in the year 237. As a reward for his service and his role in ending the civil war, Morrow Blight was gifted the territory of High East in the northeast of the Dunan region, where he would establish the Highland Kingdom. Harmonia would also present Morrow Blight with a silver spear as a symbol of his authority to rule. While the land was gifted to Morrow Blight as a reward for his role in ending the civil war, Harmonia had an ulterior motive for such a generous gift. The Highland Kingdom was intended to act as a buffer between Harmonia and the southern territories, such as the Scarlet Moon Empire, which seceded from Harmonia during the Civil War. Under Morrow Blight's rule, the Highland Kingdom would serve as a vassal state of the Holy Kingdom of Harmonia. Following this, the Beast Rune, one of the 27 True Runes, would transfer itself to Lorenwi, the capital of the Highland Kingdom. As the Highland Kingdom had a smaller population than its neighbouring nations, the Blight family saw it necessary to create a strong military with a focus on meritocracy to protect itself. The sudden emergence of this militaristic power on the Dunan Monarchy's eastern border would further accelerate the decline of the ailing monarchy. The rise of the Highland Kingdom and the fall of the Dunan Monarchy. In the solar year 250, civil war would break out within the Dunan Monarchy, with the people of South Window growing tired of the incompetent and weak leadership of their government. The civil war would last for 2 years, and in the year 252, the rebels would successfully overthrow the monarchy, establishing self-rule and electing their first mayor. The Highland Kingdom took advantage of the chaos and confusion caused at the end of the Civil War by invading the eastern region of the Dunan Monarchy, capturing the villages of Kiaro, Toto, and Ryube, bringing the entire eastern region of Dunan under their control. This would officially mark an end to the Dunan Monarchy after 142 years of rule. The exact year is unknown, but at some point, the Muse Principality would go to war with the Highland Kingdom. The Muse forces would invade the eastern territories that were now under Highland's control. Muse would successfully capture the villages of Toto and Ryube, before finally pushing north and conquering Kiaro. The Highland Kingdom would lose all territories they had previously gained from the Dunan Monarchy. Formation of the City-States of Jowston. In the years following Muse conquering the eastern provinces of the Dunan region, Muse and Highland would be involved in frequent border skirmishes, with neither side gaining the upper hand. To counter the threat and military strength of the Highland Kingdom, the Matilda Knights were founded in the year 280 with the financial support of Muse. The Knights were granted the lands of northern Muse and were intended to be a defence force to protect Muse from future invasions from the Highland Kingdom. 14 years later, in the solar year 294, the Matilda Knights, with the approval of the Muse government, would gain their independence and form the Matilda Knightdom. The Matilda Knightdom and the Highland Kingdom would frequently engage in border disputes near a small town on the border between their two nations. The village was taken, retaken, razed, taken, and retaken countless times in conflicts between the two nations. The exact year is unknown, but the Highland Kingdom would invade Muse. The Muse forces, being led by General Jowston, would set up a defensive position on a hill on the outskirts of Muse City, where they would make a stand against the Highland Army's relentless attacks. After withstanding the Highland Army's assaults for 2 months, they would finally repel the Highland Army from Muse territory. Following the war, this hill would be renamed Jowston Hill. In the following years, the Highland Kingdom would put a larger than usual focus on having a strong military. To counter the growing strength of the Highland Kingdom, the cities of Muse, South Window, and Two River, along with the Matilda Knightdom, would form the City-States of Jowston. The alliance was originally intended to be named after General Jowston, the hero who saved Muse from being conquered by the Highland Kingdom, although the Matilda Knightdom was opposed to the meaning of the name as they insisted they played a great role in the defence of Muse. A compromise was quickly reached as they agreed that the name Jowston would refer to the hill the alliance was formed on as opposed to being named after the man himself. The expansion of the city-states. In the solar year 362, Grand Leaf Academy was constructed in Greenhill City. The purpose of the academy was to build common identity amongst the citizens of the Alliance, to build a sense of national unity. 4 years later, in the solar year 366, the frontier mining town of Tinto and its surrounding villages would join the City-States of Jowston. The exact year is unknown, but around this time, the City-States of Jowston would invade the Scarlet Moon Empire to the south. The Jowston forces would gain early victories, claiming the Senan region of the empire, before pushing south into the Kunan region. The Imperial Army would set up at Sonier Prison, attempting to fortify it and using it as a stronghold to defend against the invading Jowston forces. The Jowston forces would raze the prison to the ground, But shortly after, the Scarlet Moon Empire would defeat the Jowston army, forcing them to retreat from Imperial land. In the year 372, Greenhill City would request independence from Mews, insisting on the importance of the independence of higher learning and education. Uriah, the then mayor of Mews, would grant Greenhill's request. However, in the year 378, Greenhill would join the City-States of Jowston as a member state, becoming a city-state in their own right. Following academic reform in the year 392, Greenhill City's Grand Leaf Academy would be renamed to New Leaf Academy. War with Highland and cracks within the alliance. The City-States of Jowston and the Highland Kingdom were involved in frequent border disputes and skirmishes over the years, and eventually, in the year 428, tensions boiled over between the two nations and war was officially declared. Robert Blight, the king of the Highland Kingdom, ordered the Highland army, who were led by Han Cunningham, to invade the City-States of Jowston. Thanks to the poor and incompetent leadership within the Jowston forces, particularly that of Mayor Darrell of Mews, the Highland army quickly captured Mews, overwhelming the Jowston forces and bringing the Mews territories under Highland rule. Darrell would flee and seek refuge in South Window following the fall of Mews. Han Cunningham would then turn his attention to the Matilda Knightdom, who were the strongest military force in the alliance. The Matilda Knightdom would soon fall and come under Highland rule. Han would then turn his attention to Greenhill, who quickly fell to the Highland army without much resistance. With the two strongest armies within the alliance defeated, and 2/3 of the Jowston lands now under Highland rule, the Highland-Jowston War appeared to be over within months of starting. A man called Genkaku would be given command of a unit in what remained of the Jowston army. Genkaku would successfully raid a Highland supply camp, cutting off Highland's supplies and buying the city-states time to recover and replenish their forces. Genkaku would rise to prominence in the Jowston army following the raid, and would lead the Jowston forces in guerrilla warfare against the Highland army, successfully halting their advance. Due to heavy mining by Tinto in the mountains during the war, the winged horde were forced from their homes. Genkaku would find them a new home in Two River City, on the isle between the human and kobold settlements. In the year 432, the Jowston army would begin the Great Offensive, a campaign by the city-states to reclaim control of the occupied regions from Highland. The city-states would begin their offensive by raiding Highland supply camps around Greenhill, before an assault on Greenhill City itself and liberating the region from Highland control. The Jowston army would then march on Matilda, again raiding supply camps and cutting off the Highland army's supplies and support, before liberating the region from Highland control. As the war dragged on, Genkaku encountered Han Cunningham, the commander of the Highland army. The two were childhood friends and grew up in the same village. They did not allow the war to affect their friendship, and would often drink together in the middle of both camps. During these drinking sessions, the two would eventually realise and agree how stupid the war was. With both sides now on equal footing, the Highland and Jowston armies engaged in frequent battles over the Mews territories. The war continued in a stalemate as neither side would gain the upper hand. Towards the end of the war, the Jowston army would liberate Mews City, and as Robert Blight was retreating back to Highland, he was pursued by a force led by Mayor Darrell of Mews. Kiba Windermere would lead 100 men in a flank attack on Darrell's forces, taking them by surprise and buying enough time for Robert Blight to retreat. Kiba would quickly retreat to Fort Retto, a small fortress just inside the Highland side of the Highland-Mews border. Darrell would pursue Kiba, leading an assault on Fort Retto with a force of 3,000 men. Kiba would stage a fierce defence with his 100 soldiers. Darrell's incompetence as a leader would once again show, as by the end of the siege, Darrell was forced to retreat as most of his force was defeated. Less than a dozen of Kiba's men survived the siege. Robert Blight would die shortly after this event, and his son, Agares Blight, would ascend to the throne and become the new king of Highland. During one of Genkaku and Han's drinking sessions, they would come up with a plan to end the conflict once and for all. And thanks to Ageri's ascension to the throne, peace was finally an option. The two nations would agree to a ceasefire while they engaged in peace talks to bring an end to the war. A stumbling block in the negotiations was a disagreement over the border town of Chiaro. Darrell insisted that Chiaro fell within Muse's territory. Both sides eventually agreed to a duel to settle the disagreement, with Genkaku and Han Cunningham dueling to decide the fate of Chiaro. Mayor Darrell would present his sword to Genkaku, and Ageri's Blight would present his sword to Han Cunningham for the duel. When the duel began, Genkaku never raised his sword, and would refuse to fight. Eventually, Han would win the duel by forfeit, and Chiaro would officially become Highland territory. Darrell banished Genkaku from the city-states after the duel for his refusal to fight. Following the war with Highland, cracks began to form within the city-states of Jowston as relations soured between the member states. Two River, who were far from the border with Highland, grew tired of the constant conflicts between the city-states of Jowston and the Highland Kingdom. Greenhill began suffering poor harvests and crop yields, leading to them being unable to contribute their annual crop tributes to the Alliance, resulting in much derision from Matilda. While Tinto, who were located in the far southwest, felt that their interests were being neglected, and that their resources were being drained by being dragged into wars which didn't concern them. 9 years later, in the year 443, the Blight family were invited to a ceremony in Meuse. King Ageris, his wife Queen Sarah, and their son Prince Luca would travel to Meuse City. On their return to Highland, their caravan was attacked by what appeared to be bandits. The bandits, however, were well equipped and highly trained, leading many to believe they were Meuse soldiers in disguise. During the attack, King Ageris would flee with some of his men, leaving his wife and child behind in the chaos of the attack. During the ambush, Queen Sarah was violated by the supposed bandits, an event which led to her pregnancy and leaving her in a catatonic state. Luca, who was only 10 years old at the time, would eventually track down and kill all of the bandits who were involved in the attack on his mother. Returning to Lorenwi, seeing his mother in such a state would break his heart. Luca would grow to despise his father and his cowardice for abandoning his mother during the attack. And after witnessing what happened to his mother, it would leave him mentally scarred and damaged, leading him to harboring a great hatred for not only his father, but for the entire world for what happened to his mother. Sarah would eventually give birth to a daughter named Julia, and Sarah would die shortly after giving birth. Years later, when Darrell left his position as mayor, the truth about Genkaku's duel with Han and his banishment were revealed. Darrell had grown jealous of Genkaku's success and popularity throughout the war, and coated his sword with poison before giving the sword to Genkaku. Genkaku, realizing that the sword was poisoned, refused to fight. Invasions of the Scarlet Moon Empire. In the solar year 439, the Scarlet Moon Empire and the City-States of Jowston were involved in a border dispute. Skirmishes would break out along the border in the Dana region of the Empire. Eventually, these skirmishes would escalate into the Jowston army raiding the town of Kirov, before they were ultimately repelled from Imperial land. 8 years later, in the year 447, the City-States of Jowston would invade the Scarlet Moon Empire, hoping to take advantage of the turmoil caused by the year-long civil war that had just ended within the Empire. The forces of Tinto and South Window would invade the Senan region in the northwest of the Empire. After taking the Senan region, the Jowston forces advanced northeast into the Dana region, reaching as far as Kalika. The Imperial army successfully defended Kalika from the Jowston army, forcing the Jowston army back into the Senan region. Victor's father, who was the commander of North Window's 4th Division unit, was killed during one of these battles. However, the Empire was unable to muster a proper defense against the Jowston forces, as anti-war sentiment had spread throughout the Empire. The Jowston forces would occupy the Senan region for a year, until Leon Silverberg, the Scarlet Moon Empire strategist formed a plan and suggested to Emperor Barbarossa that they themselves sack the village of Calica, and that they place the blame on the invading Jowston army. The plan was a huge success, as rumours and news of what happened in Calica spread throughout the empire. The Imperial Army and the citizens of the empire became enraged by the news. With a desire for vengeance now fueling the empire, Emperor Barbarossa was finally able to commit the empire's full resources into the war. The Imperial Army would successfully defeat the Jowston forces, forcing them to retreat from Empire land. In the year 449, North Window was destroyed by the vampire Necklord. The truth of what happened in North Window was covered up by the governments of the city-states. However, a merchant called Ko Long, who was travelling with Victor to North Window at the time and knew the truth of what happened, would take advantage of the situation by teaming up with arms merchants, where they attempted to sow discord between the member states to profit off of the sales of weapons. Ko Long and the weapon merchants would forge a letter with the seal of Two River and deliver it to South Window. The letter was attached to a zombie's head and stated that Two River would welcome Necklord, and that their first step towards conquering South Window was the destruction of North Window. South Window sent a messenger to Two River to confirm the authenticity of the message, but the messenger was intercepted and sent back as a corpse. The South Window government took this as a declaration of war and began mobilizing their army. At the same time, Two River City would receive a forged letter of a declaration of war with the seal of South Window, which was sent by Ko Long and the weapon merchants. With both Two River and South Window having mobilized their forces, war looked unavoidable. However, Ko Long's plot was uncovered by Victor, who was aided by Zamji, a former member of South Window Army's Black Lion Corps, and Annabelle, who was the assistant mayor of Mews. Thanks to their efforts, the war was avoided and peaceful relations and friendship restored between the two member states. 6 years later, in the year 455, the City-States of Jowston were involved in border disputes with the Scarlet Moon Empire, as Teo MacDull, who was the Empire's greatest general, was sent to protect the northern border from the Jowston army. The specific details of what happened during these skirmishes is unknown, but at some point, the village of Rokaku was razed by Teo MacDull before he would head south to deal with the Liberation Army. The following year, in the year 456, the City-States of Jowston would once again invade the Scarlet Moon Empire. Matthew Silverberg, the strategist of the Liberation Army, who were rebelling against the Scarlet Moon Empire and the oppressive regime of Barbarossa Rugner, would send forged documents to South Window and Tinto, informing them of imperial plans to invade their territory. These plans were, of course, a lie, and Matthew was manipulating the City-States of Jowston into unwittingly aiding the rebellion. The forces of South Window and Tinto would invade the Senan region of the Empire, and were easily able to occupy the region due to the Empire's army being tied up in its war against the Liberation Army. The Liberation Army would overthrow the Scarlet Moon Empire the following year and form the Tauran Republic. The Jowston forces would hold the Senan region until the year 458, when the newly founded Tauran Republic would launch a campaign to reclaim the lost region. The Tauran Republic's forces were led by Quanda Rossman, who was aided by Qasim Hazil, Sonia Shulin, and Valyria. Following some battles, the South Window forces were ordered to retreat by Grandmayer, the mayor of South Window. The Tinto forces, without the support of their ally, and fearing the amount of lives defending the region would cost, would also retreat. The South Window forces retreating and abandoning the Tinto forces would create further friction between the member states of the Jowston Alliance. 2 years later, in the year 460, we begin the events of Suikoden II, as Ryu, the adopted son of Genkaku, a war hero of the City-States of Jowston, is a member of the Highland Army's Unicorn Brigade. If you want to find out what happens next, you'll just have to play Suikoden 2. As a little bonus event, at some unknown point in time, the Scarlet Moon Empire invaded South Window. I didn't include this event in the Scarlet Moon Empire video, and I was reluctant to include it in this video because no details are known about this event. No details exist about when it happened, how it happened, what happened, which generals or armies were involved in the attack or defense of the region. The only detail known about the event comes from a single line of dialogue from Shu in Suikoden 2, who said that North Window Castle played a key role in the counter-offensive against the Scarlet Moon Empire. There's no mention about this event in any books or source material, so it's impossible to fit it accurately into any timeline. Did it occur during the time of the Dunan Monarchy, after the collapse of the Dunan Monarchy, after the formation of the City-States of Jowston? No one knows. What happened during the invasion? Were any cities taken or razed? Which armies were involved? Nobody knows. However, as the City-States of Jowston invaded the Scarlet Moon Empire on several occasions, as well as the two having frequent border disputes during the mid-300s to mid-400s, we can make a somewhat safe assumption and say that the Scarlet Moon Empire's invasion of South Window happened at some point during those time periods. But that's just speculation, as again, no details exist about this event. And I've been reluctant to include it because of that, and the visuals being shown here are just for show. I'm sure that some of you will have been familiar with much of the information told in this video, but for anyone new to the series, I hope this backstory will help immerse you more into the story of Suikoden 2. That's it for this video, thanks for watching, don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll catch you on the next video.